Good morning, everybody. I'm David, by the way, and this is Mike, who's going to be doing most of the hard work today, so I'm the kind of the warm-up act. My role in the department is pretty much about helping the department understand what it's got, which is some quite rich source of information, how to make best use of it, and how to keep it safe as well, which is always quite an interesting challenge. But probably at the heart of it, one of the biggest things we've got that's probably of interest to you today is around some of our kind of customer data sets and what we do for stats and kind of research. So we're going to major on that today. We do in fact have this is not new, we've got quite a strong record of kind of making that kind of data available. There are kind of electronic tools that we use now. We make use of things like ONS's service to disseminate data. So that's not new. But traditionally we've probably focused on presenting stuff to kind of explain the impact of our policies. That's widely used by politicians and the media. There's obviously quite a strong base of use from local authorities and academics. But if I'm honest about it, we've probably not done a lot to look at more what kind of private industry needs. And that did start to change a bit when we engaged last year with the Cabinet Office on the Growth Review and the Open Data Initiative. And as we started to talk to people, we got a pretty similar message to what Clive Humby just gave, which some really great data. It would be much more useful to us if we had it in a format where we could use it alongside other information. And it would be much better if we could do things with it flexibly that weren't the way that you think and cut the data, but they're about the way that we want to do it. So what we're going to major on today is a little bit about what have we got and how can you get at it now. But we're going to spend most of the time with Mike talking about what are we doing to make our information more accessible and more flexible for you to use. We'll be around for the rest of today. And if you want to see some of this stuff in action, then there's a chance to talk to Mike. We could do kind of a demo there for somebody that want to see some of that. We're not going to risk it now because technology and big presentations, they never quite go right. But there is a live living system and you can see that. A bit about DWP. I'm sure for worker pensions, many of you may have had some kind of interaction. If you're kind of representing one of those big private sector organisations, you may have used our employment service. Odds are some of your family members or yourselves indeed have probably used some of our services and you probably will at some point. I mean, people do tend to think about it as kind of paying benefits and money, but at the heart of this, is a purpose which is really about lifting people out of poverty, ideally through kind of work where we can, or helping them through difficult times when they can't. And it's about preparing them for later in life and encouraging savings. And in many ways, it's becoming increasingly more about influencing behaviour as it is around sort of tinkering around with rules for benefit. So I'd see a lot of kind of similarity between what kind of Clive was talking about and what you may well do on the retail side about influencing customers. We're moving much more in that space. It is a massive delivery challenge as well. There's no getting away from it. I mean, that amount of the benefit bill, including things like housing benefit and council tax benefits, 170 billion a year. And there's something like £2 billion a week to kind of people of pensionable age and about £1 billion to working age. That's the kind of scale we're talking about. We probably run about 6 million sort of payments a day, 6,000 people into work each and every day. It's a massive delivery challenge, so we can sympathise with that. And we've got a lot of work about how do we change the way we kind of deliver services as well. So if the ideas people have got on that, we're interested to hear those as well. Because we are such a big organisation that deals with so many people, we deal with everybody at some stage of their life, then we pretty much are kind of a big kind of information processing organisation at the heart of what we do, about understanding our customers and their needs and giving them the right benefit or the service, which therefore means that we've got lots of kind of information on people at various stages throughout their lives. We're also kind of big as an evidence-based policy department. We score very well in government capability reviews. I'm certainly on the stats and analytical side, and we've put a lot of time basically in being able to use that information to create some really rich and powerful sort of research data sets. Obviously a lot around the protecting the personal data of individuals, and security and things play a big part, which I'll not major on today, but if anyone wants to talk about that, I'm happy to do that at lunchtime. The main thing that we've kind of used on the analytical side is something called the Working Pensions Longitudinal Study, which in fact is an example of the sort of linked longitudinal database that Clive was kind of hankering after. I mean, it literally does cover all benefit spells back to 1999, and things like what we've done to help get people into work, and with H&D employment records on how many people actually went into work. And you can do things about how many times they cycle in and out of the benefit system and onto employment and back again. It really kind of opens up things in a very different way. And it is all down to individual postcode level, so some of what Clive was hankering out on the geographical side, then that is there as well. And there's quite a lot of information about what people kind of did. We have a lot of information on their personal characteristics and family structure. There is some health type of information where you have to report conditions about getting things like disability living allowance and incapacity benefit. Obviously, we're very careful in how we process and release that. But basically, you can build up a pretty rich picture, you know, of a sizable chunk of the population of what they've done over a long kind of period around that. And we have published a fair amount of that information, but probably, I guess, using more kind of backward-looking kind of technology, which was fab in its time. It's still pretty good, but probably not quite doing the things that kind of Clive was talking about. But that's what we are looking to change. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Mike Payne, who'll do a little bit on how can you get at this stuff now. Some of you already might, but if you don't, we'll do that. But we'll focus really on where we're going, and then happy to take some questions.
Thanks, David. As David said, my name's Mike Payne, and I've been really lucky over the past year or so. I've been working on quite a nice project to look at our current tabulation tool and look to replace it with something a little bit better. So if you might, I don't know, does anybody use DWP data? Is anybody aware of the tabulation tool? A couple of nods would be, oh, we've got a couple of hands at least, that's good. So this you might be familiar with this. This is the DWP tabulation tool, and as David said, at the time, this was quite breaking new ground for us. It was developed in the mid-2000s, about 2005, and gives the impression to users that they can obtain their own data. And indeed, they can obtain lots of data. There are literally hundreds of thousands of data items that are available through the DWP tabulation tool. Some features of the tabulation tool, as it stands at the moment, if you can describe them as features, is that it's pretty limited in what you can do. It's just a very simple cross-tabulation that you could obtain from the tabulation tool. One breakdown down the side, one breakdown across the top. It has this sort of weird formatting in that the numbers are displayed in thousands, rounded to the nearest 10, which is good in that we're really sure that information that we release from the tabulation tool cannot identify individuals, and that's really important for us. We want to make sure that the data, the privacy of DWP claimants, customers are protected. So disclosure control, statistical disclosure control, is applied on each and every cell within that table. However, there are some downsides to it. The information comes back to the user as a HTML format, which makes the reuse of that data quite tricky. I don't know whether people who use this have tried to reuse the data, but it's essentially quite a crude copy and paste job into something like Excel, and the formatting can go a little bit funny, and it's not the easiest to reuse. So we've had, since the tabulation tool launch, we've had a fair bit of feedback on it. Some positive in that we do genuinely release a lot of information through the tabulation tool, but quite a bit of negative feedback as well about the flexibility, about the reuse of data. So that's one reason why we looked at the tabulation tool. One thing to say about the tabulation tool as well, it was developed within DWP, and there has been no ongoing development of that program. So the technology behind it is quite old now, and it's quite difficult to maintain. This is the other reason we wanted to look at the tabulation tool. When the government came in 2010, they gave us a challenge of open data. A couple of quotes from the Cabinet Office public consultation. One about the reuse of data. People can obtain data, reuse it and redistribute it, and can do that freely. But also, quite importantly, quite a statement there about privacy. We have to protect the privacy of our individual claimants and personal data protected. And on the face of it, they can seem quite contradictory. How can you freely release data whilst protecting privacy? And hopefully the route that we're going down at least goes some way to satisfying those two objectives there. So, what are we doing at the moment? We're or have been over the past year developing a new system, a new product called StatExplore. StatExplore is the name that's been given to it by us, so it's not the commercial name, but it is new software. It's a off-the-shelf software that's available and used by a number of national statistics organisations across the world. has two elements, and we're being quite ambitious with Stat Explore. We're trying to serve people who might not have very technical knowledge of the data, or might not be very analytical, but we're also trying to have in mind the people that just want to get at the data. So there's two very distinct elements to Stat Explore: a visualization element and then a tabulation element. We're not calling it the new tabulation tool, though, that's for sure. So, Stat Explore, the visualization part, is really about making our data very easy to access and very easy to understand. It's about exploring our information at quite a high level. It's very quick, it's very visual, as I say, and it has quite a lot of information about the data. One thing we're really keen to do is that at the moment, when we release data through our tabulation tool or through Excel tables, there's not a lot of information about the data. So what's the background to the data? How was it compiled? What's the quality of the data? What coding system do we use for the data? So all of this can be integrated into Stat Explore. What I'm going to do is just show you a couple of screenshots of Stat Explore for these two different elements. As David said, we have got a working version of this, and if people want to hang around at lunchtime, I'm going to try and get it working on here, and I'll show you it, because it is a bit difficult to really show the features from screenshots, which I'm attempting to do at the moment. So this is what Stat Explore will look like, and it's really good to announce today, or it was announced today, hopefully at 9:30 this morning, that it is our intention to release the first phase of Stat Explore on the 14th of November next month, and this is what we will be releasing. Hopefully that's been announced. If not, I'm announcing it now. And this is what it looks like. Gives the ability to have some background information about the data that we're publishing, and some commentary. Again, perhaps if we're being critical of ourselves, we're not always the best at providing information and commentary on the data and the statistics that we release, and this gives us an opportunity to integrate that into the system. The idea behind Stat Explore is that you click. It's one click and you get into the data, and this is what a visualization will look like. And it has a number of features. It's interactive. You can choose different breakdowns. So on the right-hand side there, you can choose different months, different age bands. You can compare family types within that chart. It's really important that it's not just about visualization. It's not just about an interactive chart. The data behind that chart is available as well. And so when you produce and explore the data and come across an analysis that you like and want to reuse, then you can easily do that. You can download the data directly to Excel. You can download the chart to a graphics object, to a PDF document. If you want to use that chart in your own website, you can click on the little embed button that's on there, and that will come up with a little box with the code, and you can copy and paste that code and put it on your website. So it's quite good on reusing the data. Information about that data will be available in there as well. So there's a little metadata tab, and if you click on that, it will tell you about the data. It will tell you what coding system we've used, how we derive the data behind that information, what the quality is like, how many missing values there are for the data item. Finally, what we can also do with that chart is you can easily share it as well, which again is something probably you can't do for our current tabulation tools. So just on the right there, it's just sort of going off the screen a little bit. There's a whole load of links to social media. So by one click, you can tweet a chart and share it to the wider public. You can email it. You can put it on Facebook. The whole series of social media is there. And this part of Stat Explore is fully compatible as well with iPhones, iPads, tablets, that sort of thing. So if you have the urge to explore DWP statistics whilst you're not in the office, then you can go in here and have a play, and it all works perfectly. All been fully tested on tablets and iPhones, and you can explore the data that way as well. So that's the visualization part of it. They're just some examples of some of the visualizations that we will release. The release in November will be for housing benefit claimants. So it's a phased approach, which I'll talk about in 2 seconds. The other part, which I guess a fair few you might be interested in is just about get me the data, give me the data. I'm not interested in all of those fancy charts and things. And this is where the tabulator part comes in. And it looks
5 minutes.
Okay, it looks something like this. I'll whiz through this, and again, if people want to see it in more detail, they can do it at lunchtime. So it's essentially the idea of build your own table. You have the breakdowns on the left-hand side, you have a data table in the middle, and you start building your own tables. The variables are organised in quite a nice format, and they're all consistent and hierarchical. So we've got, for instance, that example is a hierarchy going down to local authority area, but the ability of this software will allow us to go down to census output area in a nice, consistent hierarchy. You build a table, and then you can click on the Retrieve Data button, and what that will do will, unlike the current tabulation tool, it will go away to the individual raw data. So data held for individuals, it will compile a table, it will apply statistical disclosure control on that table, and it will bring back the results. So there's a lot of number crunching that goes on in the background, and you get something like that. So disclosure control has been applied to that table. You get some options within the table itself. I'm going to whiz through some of these. So you can sort the table, ascending, descending. You can choose, there's a little button there, very difficult to see, with a C on, which is to obtain the code. So if you want the codes for the local authorities, you can click on that and it will bring the codes. You can put the totals on or take the totals off. You can also click on the information button, and this is what I was talking about, the metadata. So click on the information button, it will bring additional information up about that. So it will bring, for this example, we've got a description, we've got the image of the question from the housing benefit claim form, where the information is derived from. We've got information about the quality. You can choose percentages in the table, so you don't need to take it away to Excel to work out percentages. You can do that automatically within the software. You can reuse that data in a number of formats. So you can download as Excel, straight into Excel, CSV, or also into a format called Statistical Data and Metadata Exchange, which will download all of that metadata as well as the data. So that's a format that's used quite widely across Europe in statistical agencies, not so much at the moment in this country. We can give you the option to register, and if you register, you get some additional functions available, so you can create your own bespoke breakdown. So here's an example of creating a particular group of local authorities, so you don't need to choose them all, and it will create that group, and that will be available for you to use next time you go in. You can also create your own table and save that and then reuse it, and when the data is updated, the table will be updated. Finally, there are a couple of visualizations associated as well, so you can chart and you can map as well, so that map and charts are fully integrated into the system. There's a quick summary. I won't go through some of that because I've gone through most of that. A little bit about the implementation. As I said, we're going to release on the 14th of November for housing benefit. That's the first phase, and that's going to be the visualization part. So the visualization part will be released on the 14th. And just a plea, I'm always looking for people to help preview and test Stat Explorer, and genuinely, if you come and help me preview and test it, then there are opportunities to shape the way that we go with Stat Explorer. It's an off-the-shelf software, so it's limited what we can do, but we can customise it in some ways. So if you do want to help me, then you're more than willing to. I'll be more than happy to get your details and get you to help us test it. Okay, just final slide, and David's just going to go through.
Okay. So that's kind of mainly what we're doing to improve access to data. And we are kind of working with people who traditionally haven't. So we, for example, we have a welfare sector transparency board. We're involving more of the private sector. And Keith Dugmore is a member of that board, and he's helping bringing people to us to see how we can develop this thing. There will, of course, be other things happening. There's a massive kind of welfare reform agenda going on at the minute. You might have kind of seen a bit in the media. And that will bring new information and new data, probably more around kind of sort of households or family units than traditional, and that will help us. It's quite a longer development, but we'll be looking to make that available through the same route. Obviously, there's a lot of work around exploring linking of admin data sources across government, and we're looking at ways in which we can do that. Probably the biggest thing is actually working with ONS on beyond 2011 and sharing some of DWP's data and working with them, really, so to see how far we could go with using admin data to get some of the things we get now at the census, probably on a more timely and frequently basis that The jury's out whether that's the exact answer, but certainly we're kind of working with ONS to understand that little knot. And another big thing is around working with the ESRC Admin Data Task Force. We have Peter Elias here. I mean, some data may still need you to get access to the individual record for more kind of crunchy research, and we're looking at ways, how can we do that while still protecting privacy. There's quite a big bit of work we can't go into now, but we're heavily engaged on that. So whilst we think this is a really big way of aiding the kind of transparency agenda, it's not necessarily the be-all and the end-all, and we are looking at other things. So at that point, I'll stop there and we'll invite questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So any questions for David and Mike? Martin, down in the front table.
Martin Callingham. Two related questions. Demographic user group should be called Nerds Anonymous. So this is a question from Nerds Anonymous. The first part of the question is in the chart that you showed, in which percentages are shown, are the base populations available so that the percentages can be shown as penetrations of the population?
At the moment, the data that will feed into the first phase will just be the housing benefit population. So the percentages, that particular example was the percentages of the housing benefit population.
Yes, that's what I understood from it. Yeah. So the answer is no, not yet.
No.
The second part, which is sort of related and connects to Clive's comment about why on earth isn't data aggregated to census aerial units, output areas, is it possible to put a sense? Will it be possible, or is it possible, to put a census output area, regional aerial variable, basically, on it, so you can create an output area table of those counts?
Well, the simple answer is yes, because the underlying stuff is postcoded. We will be releasing it at a certain kind of sort of level, and then we'll explore, what else might be possible and useful. And indeed, the previous comment, I mean, in principle, it is possible to bring in and incorporate other data in this. It's a question of, what's most useful and the order in which we kind of bite it off.
But with the output area question, the counts at output area, if you did that, then one could compare it directly to the census equivalent figures. That's why the two questions were related.
The data, we do currently publish DWP data at census output area, but it's disjointed from our current tabulation tool, and what Stat Explorer will do will be to bring that into one product, so that information at census output area, super output area will be available.
I'm sorry to keep on pushing this, but it would transform enormous amounts of the use of data if it was available at aggregated output area form. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we shall take that comment on board.
Next question. In the absence of any hands going up, I've got a quick question. In the past, we've seen lots of presentations connected with data.gov.uk. And that's been pushed as a sort of a one-stop shop for access and information. So if I was to go onto data.gov.uk and search for housing benefit, would I be then linked through to Stat Explorer?
Yeah, it's a simple answer. That's pretty much what happens now.
Okay.
At the moment, you'll be linked through to pretty rubbish Excel table, but when it's launched, you'll be linked.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Any more questions from the floor? Richard over in the back.
Richard Hopper, Serco. Great presentation, brilliant tool, but the question I have is probably for you, David. You put some great work into this, but are you going to put the same quality of work into the other data that you're releasing for transparency that you've done for this? Because the quality and the data is atrocious. It's inconsistent and doesn't match up month to month, let alone year to year. So you're releasing a lot of data through the ODI, but it doesn't seem to have any consistency to it. So are you going to put a lot of the work that you've done to this into that type of data?
Again, prioritisation will need to kind of understand the need. I mean, these are our kind of long-established data sets that are in the form to sort of do this. But if there's a demand for other things, then that's what we will start to explore.
Yeah, that's fine, but this is data that you're releasing at the present moment. It's open, it's being used by everybody, but there are massive inconsistencies month on month on the data that you're releasing. So from a business point of view and for anybody else who's using it, you can't use the same data set month on month because it keeps changing.
Okay, well, let's have a separate conversation about what you're specifically referring to, and then we can look at that.
Any more questions? No? Okay, I'd like to thank David and Mike for a good presentation. Thank you.